Thank you for purchasing the low back pain rehab template by Tame. This is going to be a video tutorial walking you through how to use this template. If you have any issues using the template, please email us at contact@tamepain.com, right there. You can also receive free help on our completely free forum at tamepain.com. Click on the forum tab, and we have a pain and rehab discussion thread, as well as a specific low back pain rehab template thread. That will also be helpful for those who are wanting to chat with others who are potentially running this template or also dealing with pain scenarios. You should have received an email upon purchase of the template that included both a PDF walkthrough as well as the link to your individualized Google spreadsheet for the template. Be sure to review the PDF, and it has a lot of useful information for running this template. I also recommend watching this video tutorial in its entirety before starting the template. So once you've done both of those, let's go over what this template includes. So here we have the welcome page, which is the initial page that loads upon opening the template. The second tab is the calculator. This will allow you to use estimated 1-rep maxes, although this specific template is for rehabilitative purposes, and I do recommend running the template with auto-regulation in place by using rate of perceived exertion or reps in reserve or a combination. And if you want to still track these numbers, I think it's perfectly okay to use RP, RIR with these estimated load recommendations. So you would put in your estimated 1-rep max. So 10 RPE means you couldn't do another rep if you had to. Let's say 400 pounds, hit enter. It's going to populate down here what we would expect you to be able to do for, let's say, 7 reps at an RPE of 8. Well, based on the estimated 1-rep max of 400 pounds, we would expect you to be able to do 305. Now, don't get too married to these numbers. These aren't set in stone, and it is in essence just that, an estimation. Whether you're under or over, that is where RPE can help you auto-regulate. Also keep in mind when dealing with symptoms and using RPE is difficulty and fatigue. That's how we usually think about it, but while running this template, you should also consider your symptomatic experience. And most especially in the beginning stages of running this template, you may notice that symptoms are your rate limiting factor, and that's okay. It will not always be that way. The next tab is going to be your analysis tab. As we go through the rest of the template, you will be inputting numbers such as your sets, your reps, your load, your RPE rating, and specifically your session RPE rating as well. This analysis tab will populate automatically as you input information, and you can track things along the way. Again, try not to focus too much on the absolute intensity or the most load that you're lifting, especially when you're dealing with symptoms. That's just going to be unnecessary. Rather, we should focus on going through this process to return back to our baseline of activity prior to symptoms occurring. The one I really want to highlight is going to be session RPE, which is right here. I would rather not see on a consistent basis SRPEs 8s, 9s, and 10s. If that's happening, we probably need to make some adjustments to dosage of activity, whether dropping RPE or reducing load. You're also going to see tonnage here, which is sets times reps times load. And this little line here is your average, and so that's just tracking based on all of the data collected thus far. And you can see tonnage for each individual movement, the primary 3 exercises, and we'll go over that. And then this is just tracking your estimated 1-rep max. Overview tab, some people like this. This is the template in its entirety for all 12 weeks and all of the exercises that are programmed for the entire template. Myself and most folks that I've worked with tend to like using the weeks tabs, and we'll go over that in just a minute. Phase 1 exercise selection. This is going to be anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, depending on your symptoms, your tolerance level, and how is active range of motion and movement improving for you. You may just do the initial week and then move on to phase 2. More on that in the PDF outline. When you're picking your movements, you just come up here and this will cue you. You're going to click the drop-down menu and pick which movement you want to start with. We do already have this pre-filled out, but these are just general recommendations. You can go in and adjust these. Some people may need to start with just simply their body weight going through squats and going through tolerable ranges of motion. Other people may be able to start at goblet squats, some front squats, some even at the high bar back squat. So we'll just have to see how you're tolerating movement. Same thing with bench press. We have it pre-selected for feet up bench press. You could also do modified push-up or push-up if you needed to. And then the deadlift variation as well. You may need to initially start with just air deadlifts or PVC pipe or wooden dowel deadlifts, and then slowly building to a sumo kettlebell deadlift. Eventually outside the legs, dual kettlebell deadlifts, and then conventional or sumo. It's somewhat arbitrary, but my usual progressions in clinic with folks, if they're able to do a sumo kettlebell deadlift for multiple reps and sets at, say, 53-pound kettlebell, then I'm not as concerned with them going on to doing a 45-pound bar deadlift. Similarly, if they're picking up 70 pounds off the ground and they have access to bumper plates, then they could put a 10 on each side, and now they're at 65 pounds for the sumo or conventional. Here at the bottom, you're going to see these accessory or supplemental movements sprinkled throughout the template. These are programmed in specifically for movements that folks are usually sensitized to while dealing with low back pain. And typically that's going to be spinal flexion and extension. You could add in a spinal rotation movement here if you wanted to, like Russian twists, completely up to you. We're not overly concerned about harming ourselves with various movements. It's ultimately just up to your tolerance level. For spinal flexion, day one, you would just pick the supplemental movement you want to use. And the easiest may be the starting point of a crunch. And it's perfectly okay to run a crunch for all 3 days on the week one. And similarly, you could do Supermans, you could do good mornings, you could do Sphinx or Cobra based on tolerance. Sphinx just goes up to the elbows and Cobra goes all the way to full arm blackout. You may tolerate Sphinx better initially first for spinal extension versus Cobra. Looking ahead at week one for phase 1 and day 1, you're going to see that it has populated whatever you picked over on phase 1 exercise selection. So the first movement here is the body weight squat, feet up press, and sumo barbell deadlift for exercise 3. And then we've programmed out our recommended sets and reps. So you'll see here 15 reps at RPE 4, 15 reps at RPE 5, 15 reps at RPE 6. You could try to progressively increase load set to set to set, or when we're dealing with symptoms, you may use the same load for all of these. Keep in mind, RPE is fatigue, difficulty, and symptoms. We give a recommended rest period between each set as well, but you can also rest until you feel recovered. Just try not to rush the process. Make sure you go in and input your data for each set. So here we did a 100-pound squat for 15 reps. We rated it an RPE 5. And it tells us our estimated 1 rep max, our percentage based on intensity, and then our total reps that we completed. So far we completed 15, and the total amount of weight we moved, which is sets times reps times load, so 1,500 pounds here. If you go over to the next one, it's the same repeat for programming for these movements, and then you'll see here at the end, you have spinal flexion, the crunch movement that we selected back on the prior tab, as well as a Superman, and we do have the recommended dosage of activity for those movements as well. And for week 1 and week 2 and week 3, these don't change too much. We assume that as you're starting in higher volume with lower intensity, that you're going to be able to progress session to session. So it does drop to 12 reps for each movement and then 10 reps for each movement. And then GPP, just general physical preparedness. We have right now just programmed low intensity steady state cardio. We want that at an RP 4 or less, or a target heart rate zone of about 60% of your max heart rate. You can also use heart rate reserve to figure this out, which I talk about in the PDF as well. And it says 1 to 2 days per week or to your tolerance level. We don't have any additive arm work, upper back work, or ab work just yet, but we will, that will be added in subsequent weeks. And weeks 2 and 3 are basically a repeat in order to give you more time and space to work through symptoms and active range of motion and loading to tolerance. Phase 2 looks very similar for exercise selection, except you're going to see regression of the supplemental movements for spinal flexion and extension. It's just down to 1. And then you're going to have more options for squat as well as a supplemental squat here. So make sure you pick both your primary squat and your supplemental. Similarly, for your press movements, you now have a primary bench, a primary press, and a supplemental bench and supplemental press. So we're just layering in more exercises as well. And then you have primary deadlift and supplemental deadlift. Going to our fourth week for starting on phase 2, you'll see that the reps have dropped. They're starting at 10 reps here for each movement. And then on day 2, it stays with 10. And day 3 stays with 10 across the board. And then you have layered in GPP work, specifically upper back work, still having the low intensity steady state cardio. You can see these are your program supplemental exercises as well, with recommended dosage of activity. When you go over to week 5, you'll notice a trend down in repetitions. So we're hoping to up external intensity, and you're seeing RPE going up as well to RPE 7. So you have 8s across the board for each day. And then week 6, you're going to see 8s again. And week 7, 8s again, but now we're up to RPE 8 for a top set. We'll scroll over, and we have week 8, and 8s again for top set at RPE 8. And phase 3, we assume you're somewhat back to your normative programming, specific to squat, bench press, overhead press, and deadlift. And so you're going to see more. You have primary squat, supplemental squat, assistant squat, primary bench, primary press, supplemental bench 1, supplemental bench 2, assistance bench, and assistance bench. And then deadlift, primary deadlift, supplemental deadlift, and assistance deadlift. When you come over to week 9, you're going to see the programming really change towards normative programming. So you're going to see low bar back squat, standing overhead press, dumbbell incline bench, and you're going to see the repetitions have really dropped. So you have 6, 6, and 8, 6, 8, and 8, and 6, 8, and 8. And then now we have a day 4 that's been populated with the additional exercises of 8 reps, 8 reps, and 8 reps. And then we have our cardio here, which has been expanded to include high intensity interval training. You can also do the low intensity steady state as well. We now have upper back work, and we have arm work and ab work programmed in. Don't forget your session RPE that's down here at the end of each session. And then by week 12, we're working up to top set of 5 at RPE 8 for 3 sets. You can see 5 sets in standing overhead press for 4 sets and dumbbell incline bench for 2 sets. And so you can see how programming is really normalized at this point is our hope. Hopefully this has been a helpful walkthrough. If you have any issues or need assistance, please don't hesitate to contact us or to post on our forum. Remember, most importantly, to be patient with this process. And it does take time to work through low back pain symptoms and return back to your normative activity, but you don't have to go at this alone. We also have not only just the forum, but we have a tier 2 option as well, where you can have a 30-minute call with one of our clinicians who can help individualize the template to your needs, while also doing a 1 time a week check-in. Because of the new setup with our system, we can load into your file and see how things are going, and you can leave us comments as well for us to check in on. Thanks again for trusting us by purchasing this template. We hope that it is beneficial for you working through your low back pain.